so you can play. MiniWarGaming's Rise of the Blood Reaver.
Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and it's time for Storytime Part 3 of the Rise of the Blood Reaver 40k narrative campaign. Hopefully you've already watched the first 2 parts of this narrative campaign. If you haven't, there will be spoilers in this storytime. And once you are finished watching the storytime, there are 2 links in the video description below, one to Mission 3A and the other to Mission 3B. Now, where we last left off, Lord Inquisitor Grigorovich had entered the Cryostorm with a detachment of Grey Knights to find the newest Tau mining base. The Cryostorm proved to be very difficult for them to traverse, and it's a good thing they didn't bring any Imperial Guard because they would not have survived. But they did arrive at the Tau outpost to find it still populated by a remnant of the Tau, who were desperate to defend the outpost, the mining base. But Grigorovich pushed his Grey Knights forces forth, killed the Tau commander, scattered the rest of the Tau, but at the great cost of the brother captain Leondis, which was a huge loss for the Grey Knights at that time, and they'll be mourning his loss for years to come. Determined to continue the search, Lord Inquisitor Grigorovich entered the Tau mines to see if they had in fact uncovered what he feared they had. He could not imagine what he would soon be facing in the depths of the mines. Unbeknownst to the Lord Inquisitor, the Tau and the rest of Lascaris III were not sitting idle. They were fighting a hard battle against the Imperium troops, who largely outnumbered them. However, the Tau are not unfamiliar with this type of war. They're used to fighting as more elite against larger groups such as the Imperium or Orcs or Tyranids, whoever it might be. So they employed all their tactics to delay the Imperium troops, succeeding in slowing their advance to the rest of their world. Their main concern at this point was rescuing Etheral Aun'Thane. Etheral Aun'Thane, who is the only other Ethereal on this planet, was determined to reclaim Aun'Thane because he was worried what the Imperium might do to him, and also how they might use him as leverage to get the other Tau to do whatever they want, because he knew that the Tau would be desperate to save an Ethereal. With this thought in mind, Aun'Thane ordered vital resources to be taken from each of the war fronts and to create an elite striking force, which his Pathfinders would then be able to lead and track and find the convoy that was transporting Aun'Thane before he reaches the main Imperium staging ground, which would make it very hard for them to reclaim him. Meanwhile, Anton and Helen had succeeded in retrieving the data from Croyle's abandoned research station on Althratus and the Prospero system. The Tyranid fleet didn't even attempt to pursue them, as either they were registered as too small a threat or so little biomass that it just wasn't worth their efforts, as they were at the consumption phase of destroying the planet. The data proved to be most interesting. According to the Imperium engineers and the tech priests who were combing through the data, Inquisitor Croyle was experimenting on several Tyranid specimens that he had smuggled from Utgard. The purpose of his work was clear. He was looking for a way to defeat High Fleet Charon before it could destroy more of the sector. According to his logs, Croyle experimented with a few things. One of them was to develop some sort of pathogen, some sort of virus that they could not adapt to fast enough, and that would poison and destroy the fleet. Another way was just to simply develop better weapons against them. It was the crudest of all the experiments. And the third way was really interesting. It was to determine a method to disrupt their synaptic connections. Croyle was convinced that since the Tyranids affected Psychers so much, that they must have an inherent connection to the warp. He didn't believe they just simply blocked out the warp through the power of the hive mind, but because so many of them accessed the warp, that it would cause the problem. He had no way to verify these claims to find out if they're true or not, but he wanted to work on trying to disrupt that. If you could find a way to break those links, and all of a sudden you're no longer facing a Tyranid swarm, you're facing a bunch of alien bugs who are no more coordinated than a bunch of different animals on another planet. It should be easy for the Imperium to defeat them if they could break that coherency amongst them. However, the logs revealed a couple major problems. Croyle had no significant breakthroughs, being one of them, and the Tyranids were starting to multiply faster than his containment protocols could keep up with. Soon, Inquisitor Croyle had to abandon the moon, as he didn't have the forces to eradicate the Tyranids that he had brought there, and they quickly grew to dangerous numbers. Interrogator Anton was furious at this. He could see that Croyle might have had good intentions, but it does not forgive his methods, because there was a huge problem here that he was blaming Inquisitor Croyle for. That now High Fleet Charon had the genetic information of the Tyranids who fought on Utgard. If they had just been all eradicated, then anything they had learned to adapt from would have been lost with them. But because he brought some of those specimens with him, and now they're part of the High Fleet Charon again, they will have learned from that. He wasn't exactly sure what that would mean, but he knew that Tyranids who had learned to develop a gene stealer cult, even in the presence of a minor, albeit hive mind, and had undermined most of the security of an entire world, an Imperium world, that information he just didn't want to get back to the Tyranids. So he was very sure that Croyle had to pay for this and that he had to die. The only clue as to the whereabouts of Croyle was in his last logs. The one avenue of his research that had the most promise was in developing a pathogen. Croyle admitted that he lacked the knowledge and resources to do so, but he knew that the Tau had succeeded in the past against High Fleet Kraken, who he sure was the mother fleet of the High Fleet Charon. So his next move was simple. He would travel to the Tau sets to seek out their help. That's another reason for Anton to be really upset. So with that, Anton, Helen, and the rest of their small expedition set a course for the outskirts of the Tau Empire on a small Tau outpost that Croyle's notes had indicated that he would be traveling to. Time was running out for Anton, as he was soon to rendezvous with Grigorovich in the main expedition. He was only given so much time so that he could hunt down Croyle. Fortunately, the system that they were heading to was actually somewhat in the direction of Lascaris, as it was heading towards Tau space. So this gave Anton one last chance to try to find Croyle. Upon arriving in the Tau system, Anton sent a communication to the small Tau force. It was just a research station. They're demanding them to surrender all information about Inquisitor Croyle. They replied saying that Croyle was no longer there, so he had been there, and that they would have to leave, that Anton's forces would have to leave or be destroyed. This, of course, stoked Anton's pride, and he's thinking, I can take you guys easily, and I need to find out where Croyle has gone because he must die. And so he got totally angry and decided to launch a force against the Tau and wipe them out and take the information they needed that they would not give to him. Sister Helen was alongside him all this, and she relished a chance for another fight. Those around her noted that she seemed to be increasing in strength, and they attributed it to her increasing faith from the relic blade that she carried. She seemed to give off an aura that inspired those people around her to fight harder and longer for the Emperor. In fact, every major decision that Anton made was in the presence of Helen, as he found that her faith bolstered his resolve to do what he must to find and kill Croyle. Anton ordered every last soldier into the transports that would descend upon the Tau. Their cruiser was to bombard the major positions of the Tau as they descended, destroying any hopes of an extended war, because he didn't want to have to deal with that. However, as their transport entered the atmosphere, the Eldar relic on board, the cruiser started to glow and shake as if reacting to some presence. This is the relic that they got from the rogue trader, who got it from Croyle back a while ago. A huge warp storm suddenly erupted all around the expedition's forces, throwing their attacks into chaos, quite literally. Many of the transports fell to black and red lightning, and the rest became scattered and unorganized. Helen urged Anton forward through the storms, saying that she could feel a test was being issued to them by the Emperor to conquer not only the Tau, but the Chaos presence. Anton's resolve wavered for a moment, but then he turned to the pilot and ordered them to press on through the storm, whatever the cost may be. The world below shifted and warped, and fell demons of the warp started spilling out, slaughtering Tau and Imperium forces alike. Everything was in chaos, but Helen seemed to glow with anticipation as her fellow sisters boarded their immolators and rolled forward towards the heat of the largest battle. Anton felt reluctant, but he followed. So those will be our two missions. Mission 3A will be the rescue mission, and Mission 3B will be the mission on the Tau outpost world with the chaos. Both of those missions are in the links below. 3A, of course, is free, available on YouTube, and 3B is in the MiniWarGaming Vault. If you're not a MiniWarGaming Vault member, you can still click on it and get a free 7-day trial. Get instant access to everything, all the past of our narrative campaigns as well, all of our battle reports and painting tutorials, everything. You get access to all of that free for 7 days, and you don't even have to keep it. You can cancel at any point. Even if you forget to cancel and you get billed, you have 30 days to get all your money back. So we don't want your money if you don't want the vault, but we find that the majority, the vast majority of people who sign up for the trial end up keeping it because they just love everything that's in there. And thank you very much to the vault members, of course, for supporting us, because the vault memberships are what allow us to make these videos. They are what provides us the revenue we need to do everything that we're doing. So thank you very much. Click the links below, and happy wargaming.